Think about the most magnetic people you know. Chances are, they're not the ones broadcasting every emotion or sharing their deepest thoughts with everyone. There's something compelling about emotional mystery, about someone who chooses their moments of vulnerability carefully. This isn't about becoming cold or disconnected. It's about understanding that your emotions are valuable currency, and like any currency, spending it wisely gives you more power. But why has our society convinced us that emotional transparency equals authenticity? And more importantly, what happens when we start treating our feelings like precious resources rather than public commodities? The answer lies in understanding the profound difference between emotional availability and emotional promiscuity. Before we dive deeper, I want to remind you that this content can transform how you navigate relationships, build respect, and create healthy boundaries. If you find value in these insights, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you can continue growing with us. Your engagement helps us create more content like this. Let's begin with a story that illustrates the power of emotional discretion. Maria worked in a high-stress corporate environment where everyone seemed to wear their feelings on their sleeves. Her colleagues would openly discuss their relationship problems during lunch, complain about their workload to anyone who'd listen, and share their anxieties freely. Maria, however, took a different approach. She listened when others spoke, offered support when asked, but rarely shared her own emotional struggles with her co-workers. At first, some people thought she was aloof or disengaged. But as time passed, something interesting happened. When Maria did speak about challenges or share insights, people listened intently. Her words carried weight because they were rare and thoughtful. She became the person others sought out for advice, and her professional reputation grew stronger. Her emotional restraint hadn't made her seem uncaring. It had made her seem wise and trustworthy. This story illustrates our first principle. Scarcity creates value. When you're selective about emotional sharing, each moment of vulnerability becomes more meaningful and impactful. Part 1. The problem with emotional oversharing. We live in an age of emotional exhibitionism. Social media has trained us to broadcast our feelings. Dating culture encourages immediate intimacy, and therapy speak has convinced many that every emotion needs to be expressed and validated. But here's what nobody tells you. Constant emotional availability can actually weaken your relationships and diminish your personal power. When you share every feeling, every struggle, and every triumph, you inadvertently train people to take your emotions lightly. Think about it. If someone constantly tells you about their problems, after a while, those problems start feeling routine rather than significant. The same person who might receive genuine sympathy for occasional struggles becomes the one people start avoiding because they're emotionally exhausting. Emotional oversharing also creates an imbalance in relationships. When one person consistently opens up while the other remains more reserved, an unhealthy dynamic develops. The oversharer becomes the emotional one, while the reserved person gains power through scarcity. This isn't fair to either party, but it's a predictable psychological pattern. Moreover, constant emotional expression can become a form of self-sabotage. When we immediately vocalize every feeling, we don't give ourselves time to process, understand, or learn from our emotions. We become reactive rather than responsive, emotional rather than thoughtful. Part 2. The power of strategic emotional silence. Emotional silence isn't about suppression. It's about selection. It's choosing when, how, and with whom you share your inner world. This strategic approach to emotional expression can transform your relationships and your sense of personal power. First, emotional restraint forces you to develop emotional intelligence. When you can't immediately express every feeling, you must sit with your emotions, understand them, and choose your response. This process builds emotional maturity and self-awareness that benefits every area of your life. Second, selective emotional sharing makes your vulnerability more impactful. When someone who rarely opens up chooses to share something personal with you, it feels significant. You feel chosen, trusted, special. This creates deeper intimacy than constant emotional availability ever could. Third, emotional boundaries protect your energy and mental health. Not every emotion needs an audience, and not every feeling requires external validation. Learning to self-soothe and process emotions internally builds resilience and independence. But how to practice emotional discretion? Implementing emotional discretion isn't about becoming a robot. It's about becoming more intentional. Here are practical strategies. The 24-hour rule. Before sharing significant emotional content, wait 24 hours. Often the urgency to share passes, and you gain clarity about whether the sharing serves a purpose or just seeks validation. Choose your audience wisely. Not every person in your life needs access to every part of your emotional world. Your closest friends might know about your family struggles, your partner about your career anxieties, but your co-workers don't need to know either. Create different levels of intimacy. Master the art of deflection. When people probe into your personal life, learn to redirect gracefully. I appreciate you asking, but I prefer to keep work and personal life separate, or that's something I'm working through privately right now. Practice emotional self-sufficiency. Develop ways to process emotions without immediately seeking external input. Journaling, meditation, exercise, or creative outlets can help you understand your feelings without needing to share them. Use the investment principle. Treat emotional sharing like an investment. Ask yourself, will sharing this benefit me, the other person, or our relationship? If the answer is no, consider keeping it private. Part 4. The benefits of emotional mystery. When you master emotional discretion, several powerful things happen. People become more interested in understanding you. Mystery creates intrigue, and intrigue draws people in. When you're not an open book, people want to read more. Your emotional expressions carry more weight. When you do choose to share, people listen more intently because they know you don't share lightly. You develop stronger boundaries. Emotional discretion naturally leads to better boundaries in all areas of life. Your relationships become more balanced. When you're not constantly giving away emotional energy, you have more to invest thoughtfully. You gain negotiating power. In any relationship dynamic, the person who needs less emotional validation often has more influence. Part 5. Common misconceptions and pitfalls. Let's address some misunderstandings about emotional discretion. Misconception. Emotional silence means being cold or uncaring. Reality. It means being selective and intentional with your emotional energy. Misconception. You should share everything with your romantic partner. Reality. Even in intimate relationships, some level of emotional independence is healthy. Misconception. Holding back emotions leads to suppression and psychological problems. Reality. Choosing when to express emotions is different from suppressing them entirely. Pitfall to avoid. Using emotional silence as punishment or manipulation. The goal is healthy boundaries, not control over others. Part 6. Applying this in different relationships. In romantic relationships, maintain some level of mystery even with your partner. You don't need to share every insecurity or process every emotion together. Independence can actually strengthen intimacy. In friendships, be the friend who listens more than they complain. When friends always come to you with problems, but you rarely burden them with yours, you become valued and respected. At work. Professional environments benefit from emotional restraint. Save emotional conversations for close colleagues you trust, and maintain professional composure with everyone else. With family. Family relationships often involve emotional enmeshment. Creating some emotional boundaries, even with family, can improve these relationships. Part 7. The long-term transformation. As you practice emotional discretion over time, you'll notice profound changes. You'll develop deeper self-reliance and emotional maturity. When you can't immediately share every feeling, you learn to understand and manage them independently. Your relationships will become more authentic. People will connect with the real you, rather than just being an audience for your emotions. You'll command more respect. People naturally respect those who have emotional self-control and boundaries. You'll experience less drama. Much interpersonal drama comes from emotional over-involvement and poor boundaries. Your mental health will likely improve. Managing your emotional expression often leads to better emotional regulation overall. Part 8. When to break your emotional silence. While emotional discretion is powerful, it's equally important to know when to open up. When someone has earned your trust through consistency and reciprocity. When sharing would benefit the other person or strengthen your relationship. When professional help is needed for serious emotional challenges. When silence would harm a relationship you value. When your emotional restraint becomes unhealthy isolation. The key is intentionality. Choose to open up rather than feeling compelled to share. Conclusion. The quiet revolution. In a world obsessed with emotional exhibitionism, choosing silence becomes revolutionary. It's not about becoming cold or disconnected. It's about recognizing that your inner world is precious and powerful and treating it accordingly. The most magnetic people aren't those who share everything. They're those who share thoughtfully. They understand that emotions are like fine wine, better when aged and shared at the right moment with the right people. Your emotional life is your private kingdom. You get to decide who receives invitations and who gets to stay outside the gates. This isn't cruelty, it's wisdom. As you begin implementing these principles, remember that change takes time. Start small, be consistent, and watch as your relationships transform and your personal power grows. The world is full of people broadcasting their every feeling. Stand apart by choosing silence, selecting your moments of vulnerability carefully, and letting your emotional restraint become a source of strength rather than shame. Remember, in a noisy world, silence isn't emptiness, it's space for power to grow. Thank you for joining me on this journey of understanding emotional discretion. If this content resonated with you, please share it with someone who might benefit from these insights. Subscribe for more content about building personal power through wisdom and restraint. Until next time, remember that sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all.